is a universal language. I know a renegade soldier when I see one. Never occurred to me that one might come from above. Space invasion, big car chase. Truth be told, I was ready to hang it up till I met you today. So you're not from around here?
It's hard to explain. I keep having these memories. I see flashes. I think I had a life here. But I can't tell if it's real.
We have no idea what threats are out there. We can't do this alone. We need you.
I'm not what you think I am.
Well, that was it. So Captain Marvel, what can we say? I might just let this run in the background so there's something pretty to look at. One of the things that I've noticed about Marvel movies, not only lately, but just kind of generally as they've evolved over time, is that it's starting to feel a lot more like a really long-running, incredibly expensive TV show. And I only say that insofar as each little part that they manage to bolt onto it just feels like this new little episode where we get to flesh out some more characters, except there's a big caveat. Could you imagine, just for a second, if you were watching Game of Thrones and every single episode they introduced a new character and just keep jamming them onto the other episodes? Because that's kind of what Marvel is feeling like at the moment. They just keep bringing in new characters and they keep packing them onto this Avengers franchise. I'm really hoping that they wrap it up in this upcoming Avengers thing, which is meant to be the end of, I think it's phase 3 and the beginning of phase 4, the Avengers in general. Captain Marvel, I guess, is kind of the last little thing right before that's supposed to happen, and then obviously Avengers, and then I believe Spider-Man Far From Home comes out soon after that. And yeah, it just strikes me that Captain Marvel is just this kind of film that would have worked. This had to come out the day before Iron Man had to come out when that first hit the cinemas. This would have been a fucking blockbuster beyond compare. But coming out today, after the success of other feminine hero, or heroine I should say, superhero movie, namely Wonder Woman, this kind of doesn't really hit home. I mean, and I say that with some understanding of what the cultural context that is occurring in, because even within Captain Marvel, there's this great reference, for those of you who have seen the film, right towards the end of it, where, and they show it in the trailer, where, you know, she keeps standing up after being knocked down or after failing at some particular task. And it's one of those things where that moment there is a reference to a moment, a really key moment out of season 7 in Buffy, where, you know, if you know the moment that I'm talking about, you'll understand immediately how they managed to fuck it up with Captain Marvel. Because in Buffy, it kind of had such a powerful message that didn't put a single person up on a pedestal. It was all about the distribution of power to a whole group of people that had never had it previously. And that in essence was kind of the point of where Buffy ended up at the end of it. You spend 7 seasons talking about the chosen one and the hero that is supposed to save the world, and then you get to the end of it, and the hero's crux is actually to share that power with everybody, and to give power in general to a whole bunch of otherwise disenfranchised people without reservation, without any concern about how they may use it. None of that. Just here, take it. You've got it. It's yours. And this is kind of a problem that feeds into the Marvel universe, because the Marvel universe keeps telling us as humans that we are not special. It's giving us great role models, and don't get me wrong with that, but the culture of the earth at the moment is not about that. And you look at politics, how they're shifting at the moment. You look at the discussions around economic and wealth disparity. You look around the discussions with respect to equality, and then it becomes very quickly apparent that we are no longer necessarily in Western culture a society that puts people on pedestals or is happy to have people sitting up on pedestals. So it was one of those moments where I was watching this film and it became blindingly apparent to me that this was a superhero movie in a time where superhero movies are, even within their own meta-narrative, starting to show reflexive elements that place them better in our culture. They are adapting to us and we are adapting to them, which all stems from that idea that, you know, producers and storytellers in general always want to surprise an audience and delight an audience with something that's a little bit special, something that's different to what they've seen before. Sorry about the storm in the background. I probably should be streaming, but fuck it. We always want to surprise audience, right? Which has got to do with dynamics and all the rest of it. Now, that happens sometimes within the context of a single product, but at the same time, it also happens with respect to the larger group of products. For example, Lord of the Rings evolved somewhat in the central dramatic question, the theme of the show, as it continued. And that's kind of what we've seen over this long period of time with all of the Marvel films. You can see here, whatever this video is flashing back. This is Looper, great, love Looper. It tends to flash back to all of that sort of stuff. So with that in mind, it's one of those things where I feel like Captain Marvel should have really tried to strike a different chord. It should have been not necessarily about this one person discovering their power, but this one person discovering how to use their power in a way that was more meaningful than the construct that they had. And as kind of a comparison, you look at something like Wonder Woman, where the story, the construction of the plot, the way that plot was put together and the message that it was telling audiences was that here is a superhuman person, and not just any superhuman person in the way that Batman might be, or Spider-Man, in which case they can still die, but somebody who is nigh invincible, can't be killed, and has crazy amounts of power, almost unlimited. I mean, Captain Marvel is different in that she's even more strong than Wonder Woman, depending on who you talk to. So how do you take a character like that, like Superman, and put them in a situation where the obstacles that they have to overcome are such that they are actually difficult enough to increase the stakes and to make the audience give a shit whether they succeed or not? For the most part, Captain Marvel felt like a journey of self-discovery for somebody that was already, already a confident person, already had a pretty firm understanding about who she wanted to be or who she was. Maybe her mission and her purpose was mixed up. Perhaps her past was not necessarily contextualized, but for the most part, Carol Danvers, or Veers, has a set of values, a core set of values at the beginning of that film that don't change as the film continues. Not only that, she solves most of her problems with brute force and strength, which is fine. I don't have any problem with that, but it doesn't speak to the idea that this is a character whose strength and force is never called into question. That's not the problem with Carol. The problem that Carol should be facing should be things that are difficult for her to solve, not something that she can just punch her way through. For example, Superman, problems that he should solve should be problems that are more difficult than he could possibly try to overcome. And this is why I put Wonder Woman on such high regard with respect to this. You take a superhuman person, or just a superhuman hero like Wonder Woman, And what was the problem they threw at her? Was it trying to save a bunch of refugees and discovering her past identity? No, it was how do you stop the entirety of World War II? No, World War One, sorry. And that is no small task. That's an impossible task. That's a task where the bar is set so high, so far beyond what she's reasonably able to accomplish, that the audience is immediately invested in her plight to succeed. I mean, like, how, if that was a problem thrown at you, how the fuck would you approach that? It's insane. But the problem thrown at V is who am I? I'm on a foreign planet. How do I get home? It felt very much like just an episode in the larger scheme of the Marvel universe, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. It's more that I wanted more from that story. I wanted them to demonstrate more how this character started in a place, grew to something exceptional, learned significant things from her lesson. I mean, arguably, she learned about the power of charity. She learned that she values, I don't know how else to phrase it, considering they're Skrulls, learns humanitarian responses to things. But ultimately, as far as her abilities, her challenges are concerned, nothing really exceptional happened for Via. She discovered she was strong. She knew she was always strong, but she discovered she was stronger than she thought she already was, despite the fact she was already the strongest person that she knew, and decided to go against people who had lied to her and betrayed her entire life, and save some people who told her the truth and had nothing effectively but goodwill for her. First 20 minutes notwithstanding. So, I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what I wanted for Captain Marvel, for Viers to have to deal with, was an obstacle that was so great that you honestly, as an audience member, had no fucking clue how she would be able to overcome it, just like Wonder Woman. So that would have been great to have seen something like that. Instead, it was this kind of episodic filler thing that introduced a incredibly powerful, almost Deus Ex Machina type of character into the mix, so that we had the tools, the character tools and the story tools that we would need as an audience in order to reasonably understand how the Avengers and Captain Marvel, now joining onto them, can deal with the threat of Thanos. So I expect Captain Marvel is going to do some amazing shit in the upcoming Endgame movie, but, you know, all of that is yet to be seen. I mean, there's just as valid an argument to be said that the Endgame movie and the Avengers in general already had all of the tools that they needed in order to overcome the threat that Thanos was, or whatever the other threat may be that Thanos might be protecting them against. All bets are on for Galactus here. So, you know, there's an argument to be had that the Avengers, Scarlet Witch, Iron Man, Captain America, the Hulk, who hasn't made an appearance yet, except to get his ass kicked by Thanos in the first few seconds, maybe even Professor Hulk, Black Panther, and all the rest of the Avengers would be able to band together and be able to deal with the threat of Thanos. But instead, we've now got Carol Danvers, who's effectively a female version of Goku, and who's somewhat less abusive towards her spouse, and thrown into the mix, who's clearly going to have a much easier time defeating those enemies than the Avengers currently do. I would argue that it's more dramatic and more interesting for an audience to watch characters who have already failed at a task reconfigure and figure out a way to overcome that thing, get over that impossible obstacle. You know, I just think that would be dope. Anyway, if you've got any thoughts on this, feel free to throw them into the stream chat there. Yeah, so that's kind of what I feel about Captain Marvel. Jutting right up against Captain Marvel, another movie that I saw this week just gone was On the Basis of Sex, which is based on the true story of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who's currently a Supreme Court Justice in the United States. And I mean, since we're talking about feminist icons and feminist iconology, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and that particular story, like the story of her life and how she's been really acting for change properly, and proper real life social change, was kind of the dramatic structure that one would expect from a hero story. because here's a person who's out of time in terms of their ideals, who's out of place in terms of where they're located on. Oh, actually, maybe not. New York arguably is the perfect place for that in the context of America. Who's up against a gigantic machine that's been in operation for hundreds of years, as evidenced by the laws that they bring up in that movie, and yet figures out a way to get a small victory in the direction that she's trying to head. And it's only a small victory, and the struggle that she goes through to get that thing, the amount of hard fucking work and gumption that that woman showed to get to that place, that to take those steps and to fight that machine, was astounding and, you know, moving and heartwarming and inspiring and all of those things. Yeah, thanks, Sol. Much appreciated. Feel free to jump. You've got the Discord. Feel free to jump into the Discord and come and throw your thoughts in, or Joe's. Yeah. So anyway, just scooting back to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That was, you know, that was one of those stories that where I felt like, and I can only say this as, you know, I'm a white dude. I'm 30 something. I'm clearly not the demographic should actually be speaking to this. But that being said, it was a fantastic role model in on the basis of sex for guys everywhere in Martin Ginsburg. And it was one of those moments where I felt like this was a movie that was doing something to art and culture, doing something to the culture of the world at large, that was actually really timely, really beneficial to everybody, and just generally important. That's the sort of art that I would expect artists want to make. Whereas Captain Marvel, for all of its brilliant iconography and everything, technically as an exercise in dramatic literacy, as an exercise in strong, complex, and elegant narrative design, just kind of fell short. It didn't have high enough stakes at each turn in order to make it really stand out to me as an audience member. What I did really love about Captain Marvel, pretty much more than just about everything else, was that actually two things. Firstly, they changed Mar-Vel to be a female, which I think is really important in terms of the larger picture that it paints in our culture, that the main character of Carol Danvers did not have her power granted to her by a male, which is, I think, really important, is that it set up something of a matriarchal lineage to that power, which I think is really important when you talk about, you know, just culture and life, the universe and everything, that we really should set up more cultural icons like that, where the power is not granted from the ones in power, because that reinforces the idea that the only way that one can attain power is from the people from your oppressors. It ties your oppressor into the equation. And, you know, if history has taught us one thing, is that you cannot, or one cannot, or a society or a culture or whatever, cannot just be granted power. Very rarely are they just granted power by their oppressors. More likely, in almost every event in history, they have to take it.
Well worded.
Yeah.
And so true.
Right, and that was one. And Sol, welcome to the stream. I'm waving at the camera like you're here, but you're actually here in my head.
Cheers. That was an amazing review, and it's continuing. Like, you've got some well valid points here. In the essence of the thing, they need to take that power for themselves, and you're absolutely bang on there. That message itself is what makes it so strong.
Yeah, that was if there was one takeaway from Captain Marvel that I hope hits home with people who are looking for a role model, it's that. You know, I just thought that was fantastic. Just changing the gender, and it's such a simple change, changing the gender, but it makes such a huge difference, you know, in terms of our culture as viewers who are watching it. And what was the other thing that I really enjoyed about it? I liked how they flipped the Skrulls. I thought that was fantastic.
True that.
Yeah, and there's
the bad guy who was the good guy all along.
Yeah, right, exactly. It kind of showed
Vader?
Not quite Vader.
Yeah, I know.
But it was interesting because it showed how there were, how do you frame this? It showed a smear campaign in effect. Right?
Yeah, political smear.
Exactly, where the Kree, and it was kind of analogous to something like the Iraq War version 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know, where there was like no, they're the bad guys and they're the evil ones and we're going over there to kill them, despite the fact that at that particular time, particularly before the first Iraq War, I think Iraq had like a really high standard of living. It was a pretty reasonable country. Similar things are happening in Iran. Iran is the only fucking democratic country at the moment in the Middle East out of all of its neighbors, and yet we still have fucking the US talking about how they want to attack them. And I think it's
without getting too political though.
But I mean,
it's
like,
still a valid point.
There's an analogy there though for how smear campaigns lead to wars, or wars,
and how it affects the view.
Yeah.
Globally, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the audience should be able to see themselves in the protagonist in some way. So here we are in the shoes of Carol Danvers, having only the information that she's privy to, thinking the Skrulls are bad guys until they're not. And then we're very cleverly, I think, twisted to go, oh shit, hang on, maybe we should give these guys a chance. Maybe they've been demonized. And I actually went digging to find out a little bit more about the history of the Skrulls and the Kree right before the thing, because I was kind of interested in whether it would be a Secret War thing or how it would tie into Endgame and so on and so forth. And it turns out that there was actually a basis for what they chose to do in this film in the reality of the history between the Kree and the Skrull, and that the Skrull and Kree were basically set up to do some sort of competition by some superior race. Skrull won the race, won the competition and got some benefit of some description. The Kree got pissy about it, attacked him and killed him, and then have been chasing them throughout the galaxy since.
And they've since forgotten why they even started doing that, potentially.
Yeah, right. So it was one of those things where it's like, fuck. Well, I mean, they haven't forgotten because they got some supreme intelligence where all of their brainwaves go into
the AI?
Yeah, the fucking AI remembers. That Skynet chick there, she knows what's up, and she was hunting them. For a political game, really there was no other reason. I mean, the Skrulls were technologically inferior. They were in hiding all around the place. They weren't directly being aggressive towards the Kree. So why were they the bad guys? Anyway, so it made perfect sense that they flipped that. I thought that was great.
And yet it's still relevant to a real world situation.
Yeah, right. And it's a really nice demonstration of does life inform art, or does art inform life?
Or imitate.
Sorry?
Or imitate.
Yeah, that's it. So yeah, I mean that's pretty much all of my thoughts on Captain Marvel. So what were yours, just kind of generally?
Well, I kind of was banking on the fact that it was released in a similar time frame to the International Women's Day. And as such, I took my partner to go and see it because I thought, what better way to celebrate International Women's Day than to go see such a strong female lead role movie? You know, like I thought that went with the theme, went with the whole thing, and you know, what's better than a nice movie date? So I took my partner to go see the movie, and she loved the female role. That there was such a strong female presence and role model in the movie itself. The only thing that she said was bad was that it was starting to feel like the same. It's the same as every other Marvel movie, and it's following that same. What's the word for it?
Formula?
Formula. That is the word. Cheers, Dom. It's the same formula, rinse, repeat, different character, but there's not a lot changing between them. And it's starting to get boring that they've just released so many in that exact same format and formula that they need to really shake it up a bit more, or it's just going to get, like, people starting to lose interest, and it's only the true fans that cannot wait to see more. And I'll put myself up there. I absolutely love the Marvel universe, the Marvel series, and I enjoy what they're doing with it. and I cannot wait for another character, another installment. I just can't get enough of it. But then obviously there's other people, i.e., my partner, who just doesn't quite sort of. It's not enough. They need They need more surprise. They need more variance between the characters. Following that set formula, set path every time.
I would have been happy with the formula had they have done something similar to what Black Panther did, where you set up the villain in such a way that you actually sympathize with their god. Like Black Panther had a really complex villain.
Yeah.
With, was kind of like a perfect demonstration of no villain believes they're the bad guy. They all think they're the good guy. And
because in their mind, they were doing the right thing for them.
Exactly. And in that case, in his mind, he was absolutely doing the right thing by his people, the way that he phrased it. And, like they're kind of in the same vector with Captain Marvel, but, they had her power taken away from her. It was, it doesn't have to happen, but these are just some examples.
But that's a humbling moment, right?
Yes, but again, it points to a larger picture. Do you ever want to humble a female heroine in the in the cultural context that Captain Marvel exists?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
Yeah. So converse to that, rather than taking her powers away or somehow disabling her, it may have been worthwhile to increase the stakes at which the stakes of the conflict. And by the time we got along to the big Kree fight at the end of it, like that wasn't a ticking clock over the entire show. I felt that was necessarily looming or a threat or anything like that, which was what's his face, Ronan the something or other. The guy with the fucking hat and carries his hammer everywhere and he doesn't put his hammer down. Even Thor puts his hammer down.
The Accuser.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Ronan the Accuser. He can't put his hammer down, Ronan.
Yep.
Like fucking Bob the Builder there. So.
Or Wreck-It Ralph.
Right. So Wreck-It Bob the Accuser on his spaceship was kind of this thing that was meant to be this looming threat, but we didn't really see the threat of that demonstrated in a way that made us actually fear for anything. It's almost like if we were meant to be giving a shit about the Skrulls, but we were also meant to be giving a shit about the entire planet Earth. But because Veers was like new to the planet Earth, the fuck did she care that the whole planet got destroyed? It would have been more apt had we have seen some Skrulls get tortured or hurt in a way that was really bad, or have their children abducted or separated from their parents or something like that, that brought it home empathetically for the audience about why these people are in need of protection. And then it wouldn't have mattered if it was Ronan in a spaceship or Ronan on foot with his hammer. That would have, the threat of the pain that would have inflicted upon somebody who's innocent, I think would have increased the stakes sufficiently.
You've got a point there, but at the same time, you say that she was sort of new to Earth, but it's only because she wasn't really remembering her past. But I think there was still a feeling there, like she would have felt a connection to Earth earlier on in the piece.
Yeah.
Not so much the memories, but just that feeling of familiarity.
Yeah.
And like that's got to be stronger than memories themselves.
Maybe.
Like she still had flashbacks.
I mean, I didn't get that sense from it. I mean, that it's a valid point, and it was certainly the tools that they had to work with were there to do that. But I didn't feel like that hit that home in a way that made it meaningful.
Yeah.
Perhaps that was what they were trying to do. Pick up on it. Yeah.
There was definitely moments where she, even in her dreams, in her thoughts, there was little snippets, and she didn't know why it was familiar until she was there.
Yes.
Like she knew, she just had that connection to these things that she was seeing, but couldn't quite put a finger on it.
Do you know what would have helped? If we didn't get introduced to her friend at the like 45, 50-minute mark.
True.
Like we were fucking 3/4 of the way through the film, it felt like, and then they bring the friend character in, and it's almost like I would have preferred that there was no Nick Fury, and we had have dumped her, you know, in the desert there, and then she went on her own journey of self-discovery to find her friend that she can vaguely remember. She did it all alone, and Nick was hunting her.
Yeah, and she didn't realize why. See, Nick could have been a bad guy who was a good guy, more so.
Yeah, right? He could have been exactly the opposite of how the Kree behaved.
Yeah.
He's hunting, hunting, hunting. As soon as he's presented with the truth, he sides with Captain Marvel as opposed to siding with the Kree or whatever. That would have been dramatic. And it also would have facilitated a lot more time between Carol Danvers and her best friend, which was meant to be the great love of the film. And having more time to develop that relationship, and particularly having more time to develop the relationship between Danvers and the kid. That had sparks flying. That was a great little thing that they had going, and I didn't see enough of it to give a fuck. And the kid was never in danger, and neither was the friend.
That's true.
Really. So,
they needed to have that moment where they had to put themselves in the firing line to protect them, and that would have been a strong moment, right?
Yeah. I mean, or we just go back to that old trope of somebody gets them and now they are in danger, so Captain Marvel has to figure out a way to solve an impossible situation. I would have even settled for that, even though I've seen it 30 times. At least I would have given a shit. Anyway, that pretty much wraps up, I think, Captain Marvel's review, unless you've got anything further to add, Sol?
No, that was pretty much it. I will like to add for lols that I did manage to get an awesome Captain Marvel Collector's Cup from the cinema.
Nice, love it.
So
love it.
They've got some good merch out there.
Is that going on the shelf with like the Independence Day #1?
For sure.
Special edition fizzy drink cup.
It's going straight to the Marvel collection. I do have a
Marvel pool room.
Yeah, that's the one. I've got another collector's edition cup from when Thor 1 released.
Oh, yeah.
So that'll be right next to that.
Nice. I'm going to play for everybody the Marvel Studios Avengers Endgame official trailer numero 2, which includes Captain Marvel, and I haven't seen this, so this will be kind of interesting. Are we ready?
Oh, cannot wait.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man. Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
He's talking about the suit, right?
The world has changed. None of us can go back. All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
I saw all these people die. I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do, but not us.
Even if there's a small chance, we owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
We will. Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
like this one.
Nice. Yep, keen as. Anyway, thanks for joining
That cannot
us.
come soon enough.
Yeah, I know, right? It's only, what is it, a month away? Yeah, a little bit less than a month. No, wait, it's a little bit more than a month and 2 weeks. 29th of April, I think it is. So, exciting times. Anyway, thanks for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dom. Sol is also here, and
Hey.
we will catch you next time. Bye.
Have a good one.